Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome in to another Founder Stories. We've got the amazing Ashley Quincy here from Fureelz to talk to us about her story. It's going to be another great one. Really looking forward to jump into this. Ashley, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's just dive into this. So tell us all about Ashley. Who are you?
Okay. Sure. So a little bit of background. So I would say I got 21 years or 20 plus years, sorry, of enterprise growth partnership deals, and recently have just launched a company called Fureelz, and Fureelz is a social media platform, which is a dedicated platform just for animals and the people that love them with integrated giving. So that means where you can come into the platform, be able to discover people, various videos of all types, whether it's dogs, cats, ferrets, you name it, we've got them, big bunnies, and then at the same time be able to discover animal welfare organizations. And that's actually the crux of it all, is being able to give back to animals. And so we've got that integrated where our partnerships right now are Best Friends Animal Society as well as PetSmart Charity. So we're able to donate right within the app.
I love this so much. And I think one of the reasons, I love the notion of supporting animals. I feel like that's important wherever we look. I am a cat dad. Winston will not appear during
Yeah.
the call. I'm absolutely so. He'll wait until afterwards and then he'll show up. But no, I love this notion. I think one of the things that I love about it is I feel like cat videos have become a little bit of a joke in the world in terms of being a distraction or it being viewed as being like bad content. But fundamentally, there's something about us as humans that we want to see this type of content, right? We want to see, cats playing around. I put stuff on the TV for my 2-year-old to watch. And he's just beside himself laughing, right? The cat swatting the dogs and stuff like that. And I feel like what I love about what you're doing is that it's very clear what I'm going to get and why I'm coming to the platform. So, built for that purpose to unwind, blow off a bit of steam and get away from the stuff that's going on in the world at the minute. But tell me a little bit about the why. Like why did you set this up? Why are you building this?
Yeah, absolutely. So really a lot of it was because of the fact that I felt personally that every time I got off of social media, I felt bad about myself, whether it was how I felt about myself personally or just whether this like esoteric dread of what was going on with geopolitics. And really what was happening was I was just exchanging animal memes with my friends. That became the great unifier, right? So it didn't matter whether they were Republican or Democrat or whatever it was. The reality was we're sitting there saying, "Did you see the pug on the skateboard? Did you see the, kangaroo or whatever?" And it was fun. So that's the part where I realized that every day people are doing this already. So why not put it onto a platform where if you want to actually have more of a palate cleanser of what's going on, you can come onto the platform and know, as you were saying, like what your experience is going to be, where it's going to be animal videos, that it's going to be a safe, fun environment where you can actually, as I say, give joy, get joy. We're seeing, enjoying, and at the same time being able to give joy because you're going to be giving back to animals who are in need, whether it's PetSmart Charities or Best Friends Animal Society.
Yeah,
So
I love it so much. And I feel like I've been in a very similar place. Definitely between me and my wife, where whenever there's a funny cat meme, it's being shared between us. And like you said, that kind of escape from what's going on in the real world, I feel like is so incredibly important. For me, I'm someone who's experienced in the world of marketing, and I'm not on any social media platform apart from LinkedIn. That's the only one that I'm doing, right? I just can't because, like you said, you do leave it feeling bad, and I feel like this is part of that phenomenon that we're seeing. I like talking about the curve of human existence versus technology, right? We've been around for 2.4 million years. For the first 2 point pretty much 4 million years, we did absolutely nothing until the last couple of hundred years where the technology just exploded. And the graphs that you see on the internet don't really even account for AI and quantum and all of the stuff that's coming next that's accelerating the rate at which we're developing new technology. And I feel like what's interesting is it almost feels like the human brain can't quite keep up. We're still processing how do we work with the information that's in front of us. It's that overload that we're kind of feeling. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, Ashley. I'm passionate this subject.
No, I agree, and honestly, that's even where we think about where right now, of course, it's short form video, but we are actually thinking about doing more long form, where that way, if you just wanna see something where it's checking out birds, whether it is maybe something where you're tapping into just watching giraffes at a zoo or any bit of wildlife, we feel that there is an opportunity for both, where people need a bit of a palate cleanser going into this where we are in an overload. So I'm not saying that you have to have one or the other, like don't go to TikTok or Instagram or whatever, but I'm saying that when you need to have a little bit of a place to get away from all of the divisiveness, that you know at least going into for reals that you're going to be having a really good time coming as you are, not having to be something performative, but at the same time just truly enjoying people's animals or whatever wildlife that might be on there.
I feel
So I
like
agree.
this is potentially dangerous for me because I feel like I could spend a few minutes on for reals and then end up adopting an animal somewhere,
Right.
which might be overload. But I'm in that kind of weak spot where I probably would just cave and start adopting animals left, right, and center.
Yes.
No, I love it. Okay, so talk to me a little bit then. Talk to me more about your background, like coming to this point of building for reals. And you've had the entrepreneurial vision of there's a gap, there's a problem, there's something that I can do to help solve this. But talk to me about building your skill set to get to this point of launching for reals.
Absolutely. I mean, 2007 actually was in social media marketing. So I've had quite a few years of being able to be in this space and truly understanding the ecosystem of community and how they interact. And then since then, I've got years of experience of working within enterprise sales, growth, partnerships, as well as e commerce, working with various CPGs. So I'm really being able to see that kind of whole ecosystem of when you're being able to build out for reals, how is it going to interact with creators, brands, as well as people who are just coming on. So as an end user, am I going to be able to engage with various products that I might want? So whether it's pre-litter or whatever it might be, I'm going to be able to do that. Whether it's a creator, what is their end use? How do they need to be interacting? And at the same time, just as a user as well, what is that experience? Making sure that they feel comfortable, they feel safe, whatever age that might be, and enjoying a good time. So I feel that from the experience that I've had, especially working in various startups, because a lot of my career has actually been working in startups. So I've been able to see what works and what doesn't work. And it's really actually great to be a part of that. I mean, at the time, of course, it's not great to feel like you've been a part of a failed startup, which is not amazing at the time, but it actually is really great because now you can take that as a roadmap of don't do that. Much like being like a younger sibling, watching an older sibling. So from that experience, part of it was working for a startup that was out of Ireland, and I was able to work with Procter& and Gamble, where I actually put them into 25 different countries with a company that I had worked for. And a lot of that was really listening to what is it that you want out of the product, creating those customer advisory boards. And that's something that I really want to make sure I'm bringing into the product that we're doing here is working with the brands and saying, what are the things that we can do to help enable your success, to help drive more money for you? At the same time, what's the type of data that we can get, making sure it's safe data, right? So this is data that's helping animals. So whether it's their health, their wellness, whatever, longevity, at the same time with customer advisory boards, such as working with the creators, what are the different tools that you might need? Really being able to tap in because I think that as much as I'm sure Meta is wonderful, I think that they are much like they're trying to be everything to everybody, and that doesn't really work out. So truly being able to tap into the pet and animal wellness arena and the industry and making sure that we're building something for them. You know, you have to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I feel like that is perhaps I was joking with my wife, I think over the weekend. Meta, stop doing everything other than marketplace. It's the only thing people seem to want with Facebook, right? And you do get to that point where it's like you can almost see a company has got to the size where the communication lines are a little bit blurred and everyone is trying to build all of these different things and it no longer becomes relevant in its core purpose. And I think that's what's exciting about For Reals is, you're clearly demonstrating that kind of like laser focus, but also just the keeping the creators in mind as well, I think is incredibly
100%.
important here. So, okay. So tell me about some of these lessons learned, right? You're talking about that startup that you were in and some of the things that perhaps don't go well. What are some of the lessons that you kind of brought to For Reals before you even put pen to paper?
I would definitely say getting a good team, right? Getting a really strong team, being able to make sure that we're having open communication, transparency for as much as transparency that I can provide, making sure that they're mission driven. I think that that's probably one of the most important is making sure that everybody's aligned. You don't have to have an animal, but you certainly have to love and understand why we're doing this. And yeah, I would probably say those that have the work ethic that they just get like we got to roll up our sleeves and get in there and be passionate about that. Because if not, it's just not going to work out, especially at the very beginning when you're being scrappy. You have to be passionate. You have to
Yeah.
know the purpose and the why for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you started with team. I feel like that is such a big aspect that's frequently kind of overlooked, right? As founders, we can get stuck into I am doing sales. That's it. That's 90% of my role. I'm just going to sell, sell, sell. And there's a good correlation that shows that to get to that point of being able to scale, you've got to be able to step back and actually successful leaders spend their time on the team doing team development. That's really where that key is. So tell us a little bit about the team now. How big is the team? Who's there? How do you look in these early days?
Sure. So I have a wonderful team. I call them my fractional but mighty team. They're from all over. So we have Scott Farrell out of Boston who is actually helping us with charity. We have Linda Launay, who is actually helping us with customer success, and she's out of New Orleans. We have Molly Welch, who's out of Portland, Maine, who's helping us with branding creative. So what you see with all the beautiful colors, she's actually an artist and does branding amazing. We have marketing. So we have Lauren Gibbons, that's actually out of California, as well as Rachel, who's out of California as well, helping with our PR, which is how we were able to be showcased into Forbes. We have Michael, who's head of product, who's been helping us with the UX and UI. So that's been really helpful. And then, of course, we have our team out of India, which is called Big Rattle. So we've got a pretty comprehensive team. But again, at the same time, it's like that fractional but mighty team that's really dedicated in there to make sure that we have our success. And then we also have made sure, speaking of creator, we've also brought in Steve Meserve, who is actually an influencer. So he is amazing, has years of experience. And so we're able to bring him on as an advisor. So that way we really can, again, tap into what's working. How do we build this for the community that needs it? And then making sure at the same time he can also help us with building that network effect, because that is probably when you're building a mobile app, it's going to be the one of the most challenging things to do.
Yeah, and
So
I will say I was checking it out this morning, and it looks fantastic. It looks amazing. Like as you just
thank you.
saying, the colors, the design of it, it's eye catching, it's fun, it's friendly, it's all the things that you would want it to be, given the experience that people are looking for here. And it does just work seamlessly. Again, the design, the build of the actual app itself is fantastic. I was very, very impressed with it. So
Thank
congratulations
you.
to your team, to you and your team, for building something so cool.
Thank you. Well, the colors we felt needed to be vibrant because we just feel like when you think about animals, they're never clean. Of course, I had that experience this morning. So you just think about that. They're never clean. They're always outside of the lines. And we feel like all the other mobile apps, it's always like one solid color. So why not be different and just have everything out there, a little
Yeah.
splash of color?
Why not? What a lovely nod to just the nature of the vast amount of differences that you'll get across pets.
Exactly.
I grew up in a family where we had fish. That was it. It was just fish.
Right.
My father, I doubt he'll watch this, but maybe he will. He has a catfish, a mini catfish that is as old as me, and I'm 37
Amazing.
years old. It's
My
incredible that
gosh.
it must be breaking a world record. I cannot believe how old this fish is.
That is crazy. He needs a profile. Let's get him
He
on
needs
there.
a profile, right? He needs to be posting some videos about this poor old catfish that is just hanging in there. But no, and I love it. So I grew up in a family where we didn't really have pets. I always knew I kind of wanted a cat. My grandma had a cat called Harvey, and I still remember her walking around going, Harvey, Harvey, trying to find the cat to feed the cat its dinner. And so I ended up getting little Winston. I'm going to put a picture up. Of course I am. We have to. There's little
My
Winston.
goodness. Yes.
So he's 4 now, and I feel
Love.
like just some of the learnings I had of having a cat for a short amount of time. So my little 2-year-old is an IVF baby. We went through the motions trying to bring him into the world. And Winston's arrival was in part because I feel like just me and my wife, we needed something to love on. We needed,
Yes.
going through that pain. Let's bring in another member of the family that can help us. And I do say Winston helped bring my little boy into the world because I genuinely
Love that.
believe that he created a sense of calm and just love that I think made everyone a little bit calmer and a little bit more easy to go through that IVF process. But just watching Winston at times doing things where, my wife was pregnant and he just becomes super protective to a point where this cat knows she's pregnant. It's that
Yes.
kind of
It's
that kind of
remarkable.
yeah, right. And so you get to this point where you're really appreciating that there's something behind this ball of fur, and that
Right?
there's an intelligent being in there that's intuitive and again, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but there's something super important about pets that I feel like we can easily overlook. So I think that's why I just love what you're doing. But anyway,
Well, they give love to you without expecting anything back. And so no matter what, within the darkest times, I mean, that's why we saw during COVID, so many people went to adopt just because truly that they helped so many people get through the hardest times because of just the endless love or just pure comedy. I mean, watching my 2 dogs, they are cartoons. They're just hysterical at all times. So yeah, I can see it.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, okay, right. So we got the team. We've got a great team. We've built the product. Tell me a little bit more about where are you at today? Like, what's the state of the company? What are you trying to do next? What are the big challenges right now that you're facing?
Yep, absolutely. So we publicly launched in April. That was actually very exciting. We were recently then featured in Forbes, and we've got a few different interviews on local TV here in Portland, Maine. We were able to actually grow about 40% since then, and then we've been able to have about 25%, sorry, 25 minutes of average of user, which is pretty amazing of viewer usership, so or engagement. So right now what we're doing is we just actually launched what's called a regulation crowdfunding. And so that's where everyday investors, both accredited, non-accredited, can come in and actually own a piece of the company, which is exciting. And that being said, yeah, we're at this point that will help us be able to take the company to the next level, which is really what we're trying to do. Make this a platform that is fun, that is safe, that we have all the things that people will want, whether it's from a brand perspective, from a creator perspective, whatever that might be, and being able to kind of take it to the next level.
Mm,
So it's pretty exciting, and especially just hearing what people are saying. We've had it where, honestly, we've had some people who've reached out to us to say that they had gone through some pretty challenging times. A woman who said that she's actually been, unfortunately, gone through domestic violence, so that she actually goes to our platform just to get peace and have that disconnect. And it's those moments that just make me realize like this is what it's about. This is the whole point is that know that whether you're a little kid and wants to, I say little kid, somebody like 16 years old or whatever it might be, are into horses or lizards, or even have a girl that's literally called Girl with Rats, you can go on there and have that fun and have that disconnect time and or whatever age you are, have that peace and solace and joy. Because there are studies that show that actually increases your dopamine and serotonin. So that's really what we want is to make sure that people are having a good time in a safe environment.
yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, okay. I yes. So. Oh my goodness, questions. But no, I just vibing on what you're saying. That just the whole notion that just stroking a cat de-stresses you, and that release. I think what I really like about what you're doing here is that it's almost. I feel like maybe in times there can be a sense of guilt that if you're on a platform and you're almost feeling guilty that you should be doing something else. And I feel like what you're doing is because you're creating a space specifically for this purpose. There's a level of intentionality there where, as you were describing, I'm just going to go and spend 25 minutes. I'm going to have a cup of coffee and I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to chill out for a bit. And I'm allowing myself this time, just go in, have fun. I don't know. I just feel like that's a really important part of what you're doing here.
Well, especially with the integrated giving. So we have a proprietary technology called Fureelz giving. And so that is really where, as we scale, and that's kind of that next layer. So as the network builds, we'll be able to get more and more partners. And ultimately, my vision is that no matter where it is, you'll be able to filter down. Like maybe it's something that you want to help elephants, maybe it's whales, whatever it might be. And then later on, we'll be able to have it where it's something where, gosh, if let's say somebody can't pay for their cat surgery, that they'll be able to go on here and we'll be able to vet them, no pun intended, but knowing that there is surgery that they need to have and being able to get that done. I've been in a situation where my dog needed back surgery. Thank God I had insurance, but I was watching a woman who had to make the decision because she couldn't afford it to put down their dog. And watching that was so heartbreaking. And I don't feel like anybody should go through that situation. So to be able to enable that where we're helping people, that I just feel is needed. And then ultimately at the same time, grow to a point where if there's a natural disaster, we'll be able to deploy and be able to make sure we're able to help them. Because, animals are always kind of the last one to be remembered. And we have plenty of natural disasters, whether it's fires, floods, hurricanes, and let's make sure that we're able to put resources where are needed.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I love the wider mission there. I think that's fantastic. And again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, my little boy is 2. When you start thinking about technology, how he's going to interact with it, and at the minute, you know, he's got like a very highly configured YouTube Kids account, and I still don't feel particularly comfortable with that. Every now and then, like a video will appear, and you'll think, "Oh, I don't know about this." But at the same time, he's incredibly curious. He was sitting in the tub the other day, and he said, "What noise does an owl make?" And so I'm sitting there going, "Woo-hoo, woo-hoo," and he's saying it back to me,
I
and we're
love
both
it.
just twittering. I don't know what is what
Yeah.
what's who's to each other about the noise an owl makes. And so I pull out my phone, I get onto YouTube, and I just search owl, completely screwing up my algorithm. So now all I see is owl videos, and we're just sitting there, and he's in the tub just watching these owls. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, is there a world here where actually I feel so much more comfortable with him having a Fureelz account, knowing he's just going to have so much fun watching animals just being goofy, being loving, all of this stuff. As that, have you considered that? Have you thought about that? Is that something that's on the radar?
It definitely is. I think it's one of those things, and especially with child safety, that's something that we have to be very cognizant of, especially with rules and compliance on a global level between whether it's Australia to Spain, making sure that we're compliant with California. So we're really trying to make sure that right now we're safe, whether it's 16 and above. But we've also talked about, do we do something that's just for children? So making sure that there's no messaging, no anything, because I think that you always have to be very cognizant of like how are ways that people can interact and safeguarding, right? And maybe it's just Reels. That's it. Just trying to figure out what are the ways to do it so that way nothing nefarious is happening. Because that, at the end of the day, you have to be very careful. And yeah, there is a lot of social media, unfortunately, out there that whether kids are being bullied, their mental health is just not good for all the things that are happening. So many people I hear over and over again that are bullied out of school. They're being pitted against each other on various social media apps. And it's like, so maybe if instead they can come onto our app and just engage in a fun and loving and caring way, it's a nice alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really interesting point there. The impact that social media can have on the self-esteem of kids that are just trying to. My wife uses the term "just learn how to human," and these kids are
Yeah.
still just trying to figure out how to human.
I mean, I'm still trying to.
Me too. Me
And
too.
on
I'm
an
lost.
everyday basis, it's telling me all the things that I'm lacking, and I'm like, "You don't need to tell me, I already know, I get it, I've been
Yeah, yeah,
told."
but that's where I feel like there's something really cool there. Well, if you need a beta tester for Real's kids, then
Yes,
then I'm here and willing to put Henry into the mix.
perfect.
I'm just picturing it's like you said, it's just reels. Maybe there's a very simple UI where they
Yeah,
can just select the type of animal they just want to see, and they can just see these animals appearing on screen. And yeah, I feel like that would be a really nice area. But also it's a nice way. I feel like for young people to be able to engage with social media in a way that isn't focused on their own appearance or their own
yes,
shortcomings. It feels like as a society, we're getting to a point of being able to really figure out what is this social media thing and how do we use it effectively and with intentionality. I'll name drop another company called Impress, which I'm going to be seeing this week at New York Tech Week. And
nice.
what I love about what Impress is doing is that it's giving you news content that it's vetted, but also it's gamifying the news and learning about your tastes and what it is you actually want to hear and see in a way that isn't adding to that polarized nature that we've got in the world at this minute in time. And when I first heard about it, I was curious. I started using it and realized that actually this is helping me handle the doom and gloom in the world in the nature of how this is working. So I feel like we're at this precipice of starting to see these companies like Fureelz that I think can bring a high level of intentionality to how we interact and engage with social media. And I think that's so important. So
I agree. It
congratulations
goes
to you. It's a good place to be.
Well, thank you, but I think it also goes back to trust is what we were discussing earlier. So I know that there's so many people sit there and when they get the news, is it something that's reinforcing a bias? Is this real? Is this a bot? Whatever it might be. So it goes back to trying to make sure that you're providing a company that is actually creating consistent trust and that you have your customers' well-being in mind, right? That, of course, yes, you want to make money, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's really supposed to be purpose driven. This is something that, I'm a person that loves to give and I want to make sure that I'm making sure that everybody's in a safe environment. To me, that's more important. And so that you have to build that trust. You have to have an understanding of what people are looking for. And especially from the news perspective, I think everybody's getting a little wary of, is this real if it's not real? So I think it's fantastic that Impress is doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. So on that note, then, talk to me a little bit. Like, have you considered, as you grow, naturally you're going to have challenges that you've got to deal with. How does like
Always.
moderation work and stuff like that? Like, what happens at a point where, I don't know, God forbid, you see some like animal cruelty or something like that? Like, how do you handle that?
Very good question. So right now we actually have some guidelines. When you first come on, we ask people to read through them and sign. And a part of that actually does say that we're not allowing animal cruelty and all of that. No violence, no sexuality, things of that nature. And so right now, actually, our moderation is probably geared a little bit more stringent than what most people are used to. So most people are used to where they post a video and then people see it, then they react. We actually moderate before. And so you're going to see a post that says, "Thank you very much. We're going to see if this goes against the guidelines." And so we've actually, I know we're still learning. It's some things that we're trying to do and make sure, and I'm sure people are frustrated, but just trying to make sure that, again, it's creating an environment where people feel welcomed and safe. So we've already had one where somebody has uploaded a wrestler over and over again, but that's not an animal. So it's like probably not meant to be on the platform. Or there was an animal that had a lot of F bombs it was spray painted behind him. And as long as the dog was cute, it was just a ton of F bombs. So it was just one of those where I was like, well, erring on caution right now, we're not going to probably put that up. So we are going to, I think moderation, no matter what, this will be something, it's, I call it like whack a mole. It's something that we're going to iterate, and listen to people. If they want us to tone it down where they want us to actually have it where they post it immediately, we'll definitely look into that and then listen to everybody and be like, is this what you guys want? Is everybody having a bit of an uproar now? There's too many things. And I think it's just you just have to constantly ebb and flow and listen to your community on what's working and what's not working, and just always be very quick to iterate on whatever they're saying. There's always going to be something. There always will be something.
Absolutely, yeah, it's an absolute minefield, and you can trust on us humans to find disagreement and start fighting and arguing over something. But no, really interesting. As you're saying that, I know we were talking a little bit earlier about this notion of trust, and a number of kind of like companies that I'm seeing in the world that or coming into the world that are talking about being able to use trust as an advantage, being able to undercut the incumbents through trust. Another one I was speaking to a while ago is in the world of supplements, and they were explaining how they've done all the testing on all the supplements in the world, and they said there's like 29,000 in available in America, and only 75 of them actually do something. Right? There's not much
Wow.
regulation here. If you want to go and make a supplement, you can make it and put it out into the world. And that trust factor immediately undermined. And if you can provide that trust, it becomes incredibly appealing. So I get what you're saying. When you're talking about like letting community lead it, but a part of me is sitting here thinking, I mean, I know that it would be cost prohibitive to scale and moderate every upload. But there's a part of that feels so appealing to me where, if you trust the company and you know that they actually are, there is a check where they're going to moderate every video before it goes up. Like this guy as a parent is thinking, that is gold dust. I love that so much. So yeah, it's a really interesting one where, if you if you were Mark Zuckerberg and said, "Hey, I'm going to moderate everything you upload and decide whether or not it gets posted," I'm immediately thinking, I don't know that I trust you to do that. But I
Right.
don't know. Actually, I feel like we've only just met, but I trust you enough to do it.
We have a great team and they're definitely there. So even down to if people have a question on our support and they reach out, Linda's replying back to them. And that's the other part of it, right? We wanted to make sure where do we feel that you can hear where other people might be falling short, where like it just goes into an abyss. They're not getting responses. We want to make sure that we're responding to you. And of course, obviously, as we scale and things get bigger, that's it's how do you be different? How can we be almost like that chewy customer service of social media where they just knocked it out of the park because everybody had that experience, whatever it might be, whether it was a dog, a cat, or somebody passing an animal, and how they treated them. We just want to make sure that we are giving compassion, kindness, and really thinking about them in a way like you're part of our community, and we want to make sure that this is full of joy and safety. And how do we make sure that we all work together on that? And knowing that, yes, as we scale, we'll make a mistake here and there, but I'm also, in my little CEO emails, I totally call it out like, hey, didn't knock that one out of the park, working on it, give us some feedback. How do we make it better? So, you have to be accountable, show where like we get it, we hear you. This is what we're going to do to change.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like it's the community piece of it that you're building out there. And how do you? I guess that's the big question for reals as you grow. It's yeah. How do you maintain that closeness of the community, a feeling of it's safe, it's fun, it's a place where people want to be. And I love that you mentioned Chewy. I feel like it's such a great case in point where when you think about companies that you trust, I do love Chewy customer service, and I get to a point where I order Winston's food, and I'll do like a price check, and I'll go to Chewy customer service, and I'll say, "Hey, I found it a little bit cheaper here, but I want to buy through you guys.
Right.
Can you knock a bit off to make it?" And they'll
Right.
say, "Yes, let's do it. We'll take a little bit off." I'm like, "Great." Order goes to Chewy. Chewy gets my business every time. And just the fact that they would take a couple of dollars off to get it to a point where it's competitive, I mean, I can do that. That's interesting, right? That is business that's going to them time and time again because I trust them. I trust that actually, yeah, they do want the business and that they're willing to have conversations about it as well. So
Well, exactly. Now they're in healthcare. And ultimately, what I think about of the data that we'll be aggregating, so we think about again trust, the data that I would like to make sure that our company is doing is going to the health and well-being of dogs. How do we make sure that they live longer? How do we make sure that they're safe? I mean, more than dogs, all animals. So that's really what I'm trying to do is making sure that, any of the brands or the farmers out there that are looking for information, like that's how I like to make sure that it's not something that's going to, again, anything nefarious. It's purely about how do we help the well-being of animal welfare and promoting that.
that. Well, actually, I'm super excited about the future for Fureelz. I feel like this is
Thank you.
if everything is just aligning so very nicely for this to be hugely successful. So I wish you the best of luck and thanks so much for being here today to chat about it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.